And it is Linda Talaferro from the T to Extra Effort, and it is yes, favorite time, being Brown at Work live. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to talk about something, a topic, and once you hear the definition, you're going to be like, oh, okay, now I get it. I know what she's talking about because when you saw the title of this, you probably thought, what in the world is a double bind? And what really brought this forward to me is I was watching Project Runway. Now it was Project Runway All Stars, I think it was. So now you know what kind of shows I love, reality shows, the competition type. And it came up during that Project Runway. I was actually binge watching it. And I thought, you know what? I want to bring this forward because I know this is something that we as Black and Brown women deal with on a regular basis constantly. And it can be pretty tricky to maneuver, to handle. Okay, so what is a double bind? Have you heard of somebody saying, oh my gosh, you're really aggressive when you're really just being assertive? Or you're trying to be approachable, but you get feedback that you're kind of weak and passive. That's a double bind. When we're being assertive, when we're walking in our leadership mode, and then all of a sudden, okay, using very well known terminology, we are then dubbed as these angry Black women when we're just being assertive. We're speaking facts and data, and we're doing so with a level of confidence. But we get this feedback or we hear comments, oh, you're pretty aggressive. Or we flip the script and we're like, okay, going to be approachable, going to be open, and then in a leadership role, and they're thinking, okay, are you strong enough to be a leader? Because you seem pretty weak, pretty passive. Those contradicting messages that we get on a regular basis is what's called a double bind. Women in general get it for sure, but it is at a whole nother level for Black and Brown women, women of color. And it can be extremely difficult to manage, extremely difficult to manage. I read an article in LinkedIn. It was actually written last year and published sometime in last year by Kathy D'Amico. And I hope I don't mispronounce her name, Catherine D'Amico. And what I found very interesting in her article, she's a PhD, when she was talking about various other things, but this was included in her article around double bind, is that it puts women in a position of choosing, okay, impossible choice too. I want to be a leader and show that I'm strong, or should I maybe not do that? And so that I'm not misunderstood and thought of as difficult to work with? Or should I take this other approach? Absolutely impossible decision. She's absolutely right. But the terminology she uses, these false dilemmas, which I love that in her article because I hadn't thought about it in the way of being a false dilemma. And why is it false? It's false because you don't have to choose either or. That's the dilemma. The fact that people come to us with these statements about us being difficult because we're just walking in our purpose as every other leader would, because we are being assertive as every other leader would, because we are being confident as every other leader is, because we're walking with high executive presence as all leaders should, with a high level of emotional intelligence. We shouldn't have to choose or. It's actually false because you could have the and, as she mentioned in her article, which I absolutely love that. You can be competent and assertive and welcoming and approachable. You can be all those things. It's not a choice. But when we get this feedback, we're put in these positions of thinking, okay, that's why, although, and I hear some of you saying this, I'm sure as you're listening to me, Linda, that's exactly why I can't authentically be me as a Black woman in the workplace. And I'm saying, yes, you can. You absolutely can. The key is being aware of these double binds and not allowing them to force you to make a choice, not at all, but to be fully aware and to then, in the awareness of them existing, being yourself. Being yourself, because you don't have to make the choice. Those kinds of statements and feedbacks are trying to force you to make a ridiculous choice because you don't want to be seen as passive. So, why are you going to choose to be weak? That's a ridiculous choice, right? And you don't want to be seen as aggressive because you're not. You're just walking as all leaders do. You just happen to do it with earrings or natural hair as a Black woman, or, as a brown woman, possibly with an accent if you come from, Brazil or other countries, right? I mean, you don't have to make that choice. So now that you understand what the double bind is, here are some key things, steps you can take to handle it. I just mentioned the first one, and that is be yourself. Be totally aware of yourself. Now, I say that to say that's why high emotional intelligence is important. Self-awareness is the first pillar in emotional intelligence. You have to be fully self-aware because if you're coming off aggressive, dismissive, all those things, you check that. Find out what the root of that is and address it because that's not how you want to walk in your excellence. But be fully aware of yourself and be comfortable in your own skin. That's how you walk in the confidence, comfortably. And then when those double binds occur, when people actually give you that feedback that puts you in those positions, what's going to be extremely important for you to have is a network of supporters. If you've been following me for any length of time, you always know I talk about relationships. And this is one area where relationships become very important because people make the false statements about who you are, and you're not really that person. And so, therefore, those people who are advocating and supporting you can correct that. They can make those corrections where necessary. So have a circle of people that are your advocates and supporters. And when you're not in the room and those double binds are put out there about you, or those statements, those incorrect statements are made, those people will check and correct on your behalf. Here's the third step. You may be put in a situation when it's actively happening to create clarity and control the narrative about you. Some people may be doing it subconsciously, not even understanding that they're creating a double bind for you. So, this is an opportunity to educate them. And you educate them by having them clarify a statement that they made and then correcting it. And as I always say, I just said it a few minutes ago, controlling the narrative, you writing your story about who you are and how you show up in your leadership style. It's critically important. Critically important. And then last but not least, if you are not experiencing the double bind, but you see it happening, advocate on behalf of that other woman. Show up for her. Again, that educates the masses. And it also speaks to the fact of how you show up as a leader and your level of expectation, your unique persona, your brand, what you will tolerate, what you know is wrong, what you will check. That's your brand. That how you show up as a leader. People see that level of clarity, then all of those poor communicative ways of telling you who you are and how you are dissipate. They start to go away. They start to go away. Establishing your brand by advocating for others and then creating your narrative, being fully aware of yourself so you can walk fully in yourself, being yourself, and then correcting situations when they occur while you have those advocates and supporters doing it on your behalf when you're not in the room. Excellent ways to handle the double bind. Excellent ways to handle the double bind. So if you've seen this anywhere or this is the first time you've seen it, I hope I've made it clear for you. I'm sure if you're experiencing it now, you've got a terminology for it. You can call a thing, as some of us would like to say. Now you know what it is. You're not the only one dealing with it. All of us do on a regular basis. The key is to have the tools to mitigate or eliminate the impact. Because what you don't want to do is allow these double binds to cause you to shrink, to cause you to disappear, to cause you to second guess. Because then that is not walking in the leadership style and projecting the leader that you know you are. That's what's key. So I hope this has helped. If it hasn't and you need more clarity, send me a message. I love it. Some of you do that on a regular basis. I absolutely love going back and forth with you and really, really taking the ambiguity and the grayness away from some of these topics and discussing your particular situations as it relates to this topic. So if you have that, don't hesitate. Send me a message. I'd love to converse with you and help you even more deal with your specific situation. So until next time, don't let the double bind be a bind. Eradicate it, get rid of it, kill it, educate the masses in the process, and continue to walk in your excellence.